The galaxy was very old. Thousands of species had traveled between stars for millions of years. They had rules. They had peace. They had order. And they had one very important law: never contact the Deathworlds. Deathworlds were planets that wanted to kill everything on them. They had poison air, crushing gravity, burning heat, freezing cold, and monsters everywhere. Most life could not survive on such worlds. But sometimes, against all logic, intelligent beings evolved there. These beings were dangerous. They were strong. They were violent. They were unpredictable. Earth was a death world. The Galactic Council had watched Earth for 300 years. They saw humans fight endless wars. They saw humans survive diseases that would kill any other species. They saw humans live on a planet with earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and predators with sharp teeth. The Council was afraid, so they put a quarantine around Earth. No contact. No communication. Let the humans stay on their dangerous little world. Let them never know about the galaxy. It was safer that way, but the humans were curious. They built rockets. They left their planet. They built space stations. And then, they built something that changed everything. A faster-than-light engine. Yuna was 28 years old. She worked as a communications officer on the Korean Space Agency's research station called Hanyul. The station floated far from Earth, past Mars, in the cold darkness of deep space. Yuna's job was boring most nights. She listened to static. She checked equipment. She drank too much coffee. But one night was different. Yuna was half asleep when her computer made a strange sound. She sat up and looked at the screen. There was a signal. It was weak. It was broken. It was not human. Her heart began to beat fast. She ran every test she knew. The signal was real. It came from very far away. And it was definitely not from Earth. Yuna called Taiho. Taiho was 32 years old. He was a linguist, a person who studied languages. But Taiho did not study normal languages. He studied theoretical xenolinguistics. This meant he tried to understand how alien languages might work, even though humans had never met aliens. Everyone thought Taiho was wasting his time. Tonight, they were wrong. Taiho came to the communications room in his pajamas. He looked at the signal. His eyes went wide. For 3 days, he did not sleep. He did not eat much. He just worked. He compared the signal to every language pattern he knew. He used computers. He used his brain. He used everything. On the 3rd day, Taiho played the message for Yuna and Captain Mireille. The voice was soft. It sounded tired and scared. The translation was simple. Please. They are killing us. Anyone, help. The room was silent. Captain Mireille was 45 years old. She had gray hair at her temples and calm eyes that had seen many difficult things. She had commanded the Hanyul for 6 years. She was a good leader because she made hard choices without hesitation. But this choice was the hardest of her life. Where did it come from? Mireille asked. A star system 40 light years away, Taiho said. But Captain, the signal is old. It took decades to reach us. Whatever is happening there, it started a long time ago. It might already be over, Yuna said quietly. Or it might still be happening, Taiho replied. Mireille looked at the star map on the screen. 40 light years. With the new FTL engine, they could reach it in weeks. But the engine was experimental. The ship was not designed for combat. And they had no idea what they would find. She sent a report to United Earth Command. The response came 2 days later. The bureaucrats in their safe offices on Earth had made their decision. Do nothing. The risk was too high. The situation was too unknown. Humanity was not ready for first contact. The Hanyul was ordered to continue its normal mission, and forget about the signal. Myra read the order 3 times. That night, she could not sleep. She kept hearing that voice in her head. Please, they are killing us. Anyone, help. Someone out there had screamed into the darkness, hoping anyone would hear. And someone had heard. Myra had heard. Could she just ignore it? Could she go back to her normal life, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, innocent beings might be dying? She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a war when she was young. Her grandmother always said the same thing. Evil wins when good people do nothing. Myra made her decision. She called a meeting with her senior crew. Taiho was there. Yuna was there. Jinho, the tactical officer, was there. Somi, the medic, was there. Yunji, the chief engineer, was there. Myra told them the truth. Earth Command had said no. But she could not say no. She was going to take the experimental FTL ship, the Dombek, and answer that cry for help. She would go alone if she had to. But she was asking for volunteers. The room was quiet for a long moment. Jinho spoke first. He was a large man with a soldier's posture and kind eyes. I did not become a soldier to ignore people who need help. I will go. Somi raised her hand. She was small and gentle, with steady hands that had saved many lives. Someone will need medical care. I will go. Yunji nodded. She was young and brilliant, with oil stains on her uniform. The Dombek is my baby. You will need me to keep her running. I will go. Taiho smiled. I spent my whole life preparing to talk to aliens. I will not miss this chance. I will go. Yuna took a deep breath. I found the signal. I need to see this through. I will go. Myra looked at her crew. These brave people were willing to risk everything to help strangers they had never met. She felt proud. She felt scared. She felt ready. Then it is decided, Myra said. We leave tomorrow. We will answer that call. We will find out what happened. And if anyone is still alive, we will help them. She paused and looked at each of them. History will remember this moment. The moment humans stopped looking at the stars and started reaching for them. The moment we chose to be heroes. The crew of the Dombek did not know it yet, but their captain was right. History was about to change forever, and it all started with a simple cry for help. The Dombek jumped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the crew saw what was waiting for them. Yun gasped. Taiho whispered a prayer. Even Jinho, who had seen many terrible things in his life, felt his stomach turn. The space around them was filled with death. Broken ships floated everywhere. Millions of pieces of metal drifted in the darkness. Some pieces were small. Some were as big as buildings. They were the remains of a fleet, destroyed long ago. Scorch marks showed where weapons had hit. Holes showed where explosions had torn through walls. What happened here? Somi asked in a small voice. Yunji checked her instruments. These ships are old. Very old. This battle happened decades ago. Maybe around the same time as the signal. Myra gripped her captain's chair. She had expected something bad. But this was worse than she had imagined. Can you identify the ships? Who were they? 2 different designs, Yunji said. One type is small and elegant. Light materials. No weapons that I can see. The other type is heavy, ugly, built for war. The ones without weapons, Taiho said slowly. They must be the ones who sent the signal. They were running away. And the others caught them? Jinho finished. The crew was silent. They all understood what they were seeing. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. Myra took a deep breath. Is there a planet nearby? Any signs of life? Yuna worked her controls. Her hands were shaking. Yes, 4th planet from the star. I am detecting heat signatures. Very faint. But something is alive down there. Take us in, Myra ordered. Carefully. The Dombeck moved through the graveyard of ships. No one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engines and the soft beeping of computers. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Would they find anyone alive? Or were they too late? The fourth planet came into view. It was blue and green, like Earth. It had oceans and forests and mountains. It must have been beautiful once. But now, large parts of it were burned. Cities that had once shined were now dark ruins. Smoke still rose from some places. Take us down near the strongest life signs, Myra said. Jinho, prepare a ground team. Jinho nodded. He was already checking his weapons. Somi, you are with me. We might need a medic. He looked at Taiho. You too. If anyone is alive, we will need to talk to them. The shuttle left the Dombeck and flew down through the atmosphere. The team was quiet. They did not know what to expect. They wore environmental suits that would protect them from unknown germs. They carried tools, medical supplies, and weapons. The shuttle landed in what used to be a city square. Now it was rubble. Buildings had collapsed. Vehicles were burned. There were no bodies, which somehow made it worse. Someone had cleaned up the dead. Or taken them. Jinho raised his hand. The team stopped. He pointed ahead. There was movement in the ruins. Slowly, figures emerged from holes in the ground. They came from basements and tunnels, from hidden shelters built under the destroyed city. The figures were small and thin. They moved carefully, like animals that expected to be hunted. Taiho felt his breath catch in his throat. These were aliens. Real aliens. The first aliens humans had ever met face to face. The Velith were beautiful and fragile. They stood about 4 feet tall. Their skin was pale and slightly transparent, like frosted glass. They had 4 thin arms and large dark eyes that reflected the light. They wore simple clothing that was torn and dirty. They looked tired. They looked scared. They looked hungry. When they saw the humans, they stopped. Their large eyes went even wider. Jinho was a big man. On Earth, he was considered tall and muscular. Here, among these delicate beings, he looked like a giant. He could see the fear in their eyes. They thought he was a monster. He slowly put down his weapon. He took off his helmet so they could see his face. He tried to smile, but he was not sure if they would understand. Somi stepped forward. She was the smallest member of the team. She moved slowly, keeping her hands visible. She knelt down so she was closer to their height. "Hello," she said softly. Her translator device worked to convert her words. "We heard your message. We came to help." One of the Velith, older than the others, stepped forward. This one had symbols painted on its skin, marks of importance. Later, Taiho would learn this was the Keeper of Songs, a leader and historian of the Velith people. The Keeper spoke. The translator took a moment to process the musical language. "You came? You heard us?" "Yes," Selmy said. "We came from very far away. From a planet called Earth." The Keeper made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry. "We sent that message so long ago. We sent it without hope. We thought no one would ever hear. We thought no one would ever care. We heard," Somi said. "And we care." The Keeper's large eyes filled with tears. Tears that looked silver in the pale light. "But you are from a death world. We have heard stories. Your kind is supposed to be dangerous, violent, evil." Jinho spoke, his voice surprisingly gentle for such a large man. "We can be dangerous. That is true. But we are not evil. We help those who need help. That is also who we are." More Velith came out of hiding. There were hundreds of them, old ones and young ones. They were all thin and weak. Many were injured. Some could barely walk. Somi opened her medical kit. "Let me help, please." For the next several hours, the humans worked. Somi treated wounds and sicknesses. Jinho helped carry those who could not walk. Taiho talked with the keeper, learning their language and their story. The story was terrible. The Velith had been a peaceful species. They had no military. They did not understand war. They had spent thousands of years building art and music and knowledge. Then the Kreth Dominion came. The Kreth were conquerors. They took what they wanted. The Velith planet had valuable minerals deep underground. The Kreth wanted those minerals. They did not care about the Velith people at all. The Velith tried to negotiate. The Kreth laughed. The Velith tried to hide. The Kreth found them. The Velith tried to run. The Kreth caught them. For decades, the Velith had been slaves, forced to mine their own planet, worked until they died. Any who resisted were killed. Any who tried to escape were killed. Hope had died long ago. Until now. The young Velith named Hyun watched the humans with wonder. She had lost her family to the Kreth. She had expected to die in the mines. But now, these strange beings from a death world were here. They were helping. They were kind. She walked up to Somi, who was treating an old Velith's broken arm. "Why?" Hyun asked. "Why did you come? You do not know us. You owe us nothing." Somi looked at the young alien. She thought about the question carefully. "Because someone asked for help," she said finally. "And we heard." Hyun did not understand. In her experience, the strong took from the weak. That was how the universe worked. But maybe, she thought, maybe she had been wrong. Maybe there were different kinds of strength. The keeper of songs approached Captain Myray, who had come down on a second shuttle. "The Kreth will come back," the keeper warned. "They always do. They check on us every few months. When they see your ships, they will attack. You should leave. Save yourselves." Myray shook her head. "We are not leaving. You do not understand. The Kreth have many ships, many weapons. You have one small vessel. They will destroy you." Myray smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made peace with danger. "Let them come," she said. "Let them see what humans can do." The Kreth patrol fleet arrived on the 5th day. Yuna saw them first. 5 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. They were big and ugly, covered in weapons and armor. Each one was 3 times larger than the Dongbek. "Captain," Yuna said, her voice steady despite her fear. "We have company." Myray looked at the screen. 5 warships. Her crew had 1 small research vessel with modified weapons. The math was bad. "Very bad. Everyone to battle stations," Myray ordered. "Yoonji, how are our systems?" Yoonji's voice came through the speaker. She was deep in the engine room, surrounded by machines. "Ready as we will ever be. The modifications are holding. But Captain, I should tell you, I have never actually tested these weapons in real combat." "Then this will be an interesting experiment," Myray replied. Taiho had spent the last 5 days studying the Kreth. He had learned their language, their communication codes, and their culture. What he learned was not encouraging. The Kreth were bullies. They believed strength was everything. They had conquered dozens of weaker species. They had never lost a fight. "They are hailing us," Yuna reported. "Put them on screen," Myray said. The face that appeared was not pleasant to look at. The Kreth were large beings covered in thick gray skin and bony plates. Their eyes were small and cruel. Their mouths were full of sharp teeth. The commander looked at Myray with obvious disgust. "Unknown vessel. the Kreth commander spoke. His voice was deep and rough. You are in Dominion space. This system belongs to us. Identify yourself and prepare to be boarded. Myray stood up from her chair. She was not a tall woman. She was not physically impressive. But there was something in her eyes that made people listen. I am Captain Myray of the Earth vessel Dongbek. This system is under our protection now. The Velith are no longer your slaves. I suggest you turn around and leave. The Kreth commander stared at her. Then he laughed. It was an ugly sound. Earth? The Death World? You are the primitive creatures from the quarantine zone. He laughed again. One ship? You threaten me with one ship? Do you know how many worlds I have conquered? Do you know how many species have begged for mercy before me? I do not care about your history, Myray said calmly. I am telling you about your future. Leave now, or we will make you leave. The commander's laughter stopped. His small eyes narrowed. You dare threaten the Kreth Dominion? You will learn respect. Kill him. The 5 Kreth ships moved forward. Their weapons began to charge. Wow, Jinho said from his tactical station. That could have gone better. Myray sat back down. Yunji, full power to engines. Yuna, all communications channels open. I want everyone in this system to hear what happens next. Taiho, send a message to the planet. Tell the Velith to take cover. She looked at Jinho. When I give the order, show them what a death world makes. The Kreth fired first. Bright beams of energy shot across space toward the Dongbek. The shots should have hit. The shots should have killed. But the Dongbek moved. Unji had spent weeks studying the ship's engines. She had pushed them beyond their design limits. On Earth, engineers built things to survive. They expected the worst. They prepared for disaster. The Dongbek's engine could do things that Kreth engineers had never imagined. The ship dodged. It spun. It accelerated at speeds that would kill any galactic species. But humans were from a heavy gravity world. Humans could survive forces that would crush others. The crew felt the pressure push against them, but they did not break. The Kreth commander watched his weapons miss again and again. Confusion spread across his ugly face. How could such a small ship move so fast? Target their weapons, Myray ordered. Fire. Jinho pressed the button. The Dongbek's weapons were originally designed for mining. They were meant to cut through asteroids and rock. Yunji had modified them for combat. She had focused their power, increased their range, and added targeting systems. The beam hit the first Kreth ship's weapon array. Metal melted. Systems exploded. The ship was not destroyed, but it could no longer fight. One down, Jinho reported. The Kreth commander was shouting orders. His remaining 4 ships tried to surround the Dongbek. They fired everything they had. The space around them filled with weapons fire. Myray stayed calm. Yunji, shield status? Holding, Yunji replied. But not for long. The Dongbek shields were not special by galactic standards. But Earth engineers had built them expecting violence. They had expected attacks. The shields were simple but strong. Take us through them, Myray ordered. The Dongbek flew directly at the Kreth formation. It was insane. It was suicidal. No sane captain would try such a thing. The Kreth were not prepared for insanity. The human ship flew between their vessels, too close for them to fire without hitting each other. As it passed, Jinho targeted engines, weapons, and control systems. Quick shots. Precise shots. Shots from a species that had spent thousands of years learning to kill. 2 more. Kreth ships went dark. The commander's ship and 1 other remained. They tried to run. Should we let them go? Yuna asked. Myray thought about it. She thought about the Velith children she had seen, thin and scared. She thought about the mass graves Jinho had found outside the city. She thought about the decades of slavery and death. Disable their engines, she said, but do not destroy them. I want survivors. I want them to tell others what happened here. Jinho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yes, Captain. 2 more shots. 2 more ships stopped moving. The battle was over. 5 Kreth warships against 1 human vessel. The humans had 1 dot in the ruins on the planet below. The Volith watched the lights in the sky. They had seen battles before. They had always ended the same way. The Kreth won. The Volith lost. But this time was different. Hyan stood with the Keeper of Songs. They watched the lights fade. They saw the human ship still flying, still alive. They won, Hyan whispered. She could not believe it. They actually won. The Keeper was crying again. Silver tears ran down her transparent face. In all my years, in all our history, no one has ever fought for us. No one has ever protected us. Moray's voice came through the communication system. She was broadcasting on all channels, just as she had planned. This is Captain Myray of Earth to all ships in this system. The Kreth Patrol has been defeated. The Velith people are under human protection. Any who wish to harm them will have to go through us first. Spread the word. Tell your leaders. Tell your people. The Deathworlders have come, and we do not abandon those who need us. On the disabled Kreth flagship, the commander was alive. His ship was broken. His weapons were gone. His crew was scared. He sent a message to the Dominion homeworld. His claws shook as he typed. The message was short. The quarantine has failed. The Deathworlders have broken free. They fight like demons. They do not fear death. They protect the weak. Do not engage alone. Gather the fleet. Gather everything. They are coming for us all. He did not know how right he was. Back on the Dombeck, the crew was exhausted but alive. Somi treated minor injuries. Yunji checked the ship for damage. Taiho recorded everything for history. Jinho found Myray standing alone at a viewport, looking down at the planet. That was a good fight, he said. It was not a fight, Myray replied. It was a message. What message? Myray turned to look at him. In her eyes, he saw something ancient. Something that had lived in human hearts since the first person stood up to protect their family from predators. That the galaxy has new rules now. That the strong do not get to hurt the weak anymore. Not while we are watching. Jinho nodded. He understood. Humans were dangerous. Everyone in the galaxy believed that. But they thought dangerous meant destructive. They thought dangerous meant evil. They were wrong. Humans were dangerous to those who threatened innocence. Humans were dangerous to bullies and tyrants. Humans were dangerous to anyone who thought the universe belonged to the strong alone. The Kreth had learned this lesson today. Soon, the whole galaxy would learn. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Faster than light. Faster than ships, within days. Everyone knew what had happened at Velith Prime. A single human ship had destroyed a Kreth patrol fleet. The quarantined Deathworlders had broken free. And they had done something no one expected. They had fought for someone else. The Galactic Council met an emergency session on their homeworld, a massive space station at the center of known space. Representatives from 100 species gathered in the Great Hall. They were scared. They were confused. They were angry. The humans must be destroyed, said the representative from the Kreth Dominion. He was larger than the commander who had lost the battle, covered in battle scars and medals. They attacked our ships without warning. They violated galactic law. They must be punished. They attacked because your ships were enslaving an innocent species, said another representative. This one was from the Nalari, a species of tall beings with feathered bodies. Perhaps you should not enslave people. The Kreth representative roared. The Velith are our property. We conquered them. They belong to us. That is the law of strength. The humans do not seem to agree. The Nilari replied calmly. The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to attack Earth before the humans could grow stronger. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to hide and hope the humans would go away. In the end, they could not agree on anything. But while the powerful argued, something else was happening across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds and hidden places, weak species had heard the story of Velith Prime. They had heard about the humans who came to help. They had heard that someone somewhere was willing to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Hope is a dangerous thing. It spreads like fire. It cannot be controlled. On a world called Threnix, miners who had worked their entire lives for nothing began to whisper, "What if the humans came here?" On a moon called Velar, refugees from a dozen conquered worlds looked up at the stars. What if we asked them for help? On the Kreth homeworld itself, slave workers who cleaned the streets and built the buildings heard rumors. They say the Deathworlders protect the weak. Could it be true? Back on Velith Prime, the changes were already beginning. Myre had sent a message to Earth. She told them everything. The signal, the Velith, the battle, the victory. She expected to be punished for disobeying orders. She expected to be removed from command. The response surprised her. The United Nations had watched her battle through the recordings she sent. They had seen the Velith. They had seen the Kreth. They had seen what humans could do. When they chose to fight for something greater than themselves, a vote was held. The result was overwhelming. Earth was sending more ships. Not to punish Myre, but to join her. Reinforcements will arrive in 3 weeks, the message said. You are promoted to Admiral. Continue your mission. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Myre read the message 3 times. Then she laughed. Then she cried. Then she got back to work. The next weeks were busy. Somi worked day and night treating the sick and wounded Velith. She taught local helpers how to use human medicine. She saved lives that would have been lost without her. Jinho began training Velith volunteers in basic defense. They would never be warriors. They were not built for fighting. But they could learn to protect themselves. They could learn to stand up. Unji repaired the Dongbek and began studying the captured Kreth ships. Their technology was not better than human technology. It was just different. She learned everything she could. Taiho worked with the Keeper of Songs, learning Velith history and culture. He discovered that the Velith had once been great explorers. They had traveled far before the Kreth came. They had knowledge that humans had never imagined, and Yuna kept listening to the stars. She found more signals, more cries for help, more species that needed someone to care. One day, Hyan came to speak with Myre. The young Velith had changed in the weeks since the humans arrived. She stood taller. She spoke louder. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by something new, determination. I want to go to Earth, Hyan said. Myre looked at her with surprise. Earth? Why? I want to understand you. Your people. How you became what you are. Hyan's dark eyes were serious. The Velith were explorers once. We traveled the stars. We learned from other species. But then the Kreth came, and we forgot how to be brave. I want to learn again. I want to learn from humans. Myre thought about it. A Velith on Earth. An alien walking among humans. It would be strange. It would be complicated. It would change everything. Yes, she said. When the new ships arrive, you can go back with them. You will be the first alien ambassador to Earth. Hyan's face lit up with joy. She made a gesture that Taiho had taught Myre was the Velith equivalent of a bow. Thank you, Admiral. I will not waste this chance. The human reinforcements arrived on schedule. 10 ships, including 3 real warships built for combat, 2,000 soldiers, scientists, doctors, and engineers, supplies to rebuild, equipment to defend. The fleet commander was a man named Dong Yun. He was old for a soldier, with white hair and a face full of scars. He had fought in Earth's last great war and had sworn he would never fight again. But when he saw the Velith, when he heard their story, he changed his mind. "I thought I was done with fighting," Dong Yun told Ray. "But fighting for profit or power is different from fighting for people who need protection. This I can do." Together they built defenses around Velith Prime. They trained crews. They planned for the future. They knew the Kreth would come back. The Dominion could not allow this insult to stand. But when they came, they would find something very different from a single ship. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, a new message arrived. It was from Earth. It was addressed to the entire galaxy. The representative from the Nalari read it aloud. "To all species of the Galactic Council, we are the humans of Earth. For 300 years, you watched us and were afraid. You called our world a death world. You called us dangerous. You were right. We are dangerous. We are strong. We are violent when we need to be. But we are also something else. We are protectors. We are helpers. We are friends to those who need friends. We have seen how the galaxy works. The strong take from the weak. The powerful crush the helpless. This is your law. This is your tradition. We reject it. From this day forward, any species that asks for our help will receive it. Any species that threatens the innocent will face us. We do not care about your laws. We do not care about your traditions. We care about doing what is right. The quarantine is over. We are coming, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to change everything. We are humans, and we will not stand by while others suffer." Signed, the United Nations of Earth. The Great Hall was silent. 100 species sat frozen, trying to understand what they had just heard. The Kreth representative was the first to speak. "This is a declaration of war." The Nalari representative shook their feathered head. "No, this is a declaration of hope." Both of them were right. On Velith Prime, Somi was teaching Velith children to play a game. It was a simple game from Earth, something children played in schoolyards. The Velith children laughed as they learned. It was the first time many of them had ever played a game. Somi watched them and smiled. "This is why we came," she thought. "Not for glory, not for power. For this, for laughter, for hope." In orbit above, Ray received reports of Kreth fleet movements. The enemy was gathering. War was coming. But as she watched the planet below, watched the lights of rebuilt cities beginning to shine, she was not afraid. "Let them come," she thought. "Let them see what we protect. Let them learn what happens when you threaten those we love." 5 years passed. The galaxy was not the same place anymore. The Kreth Dominion had attacked Velith Prime with everything they had. 200 warships, their best commanders, their strongest weapons. They expected to crush the humans and reclaim their slaves. They failed. The battle lasted 3 days. Human ships were faster, tougher, and crewed by beings who did not know how to surrender. More importantly, the humans had friends now. Velith volunteers guided them through asteroid fields. Nalari ships arrived to help. Even some Kreth slaves turned against their masters when they saw the chance for freedom. When it was over, the Kreth fleet was destroyed. Their empire began to fall apart. Species they had conquered for centuries rose up. The Dominion that had ruled through fear learned that fear works both ways. Now, 5 years later, the Terran Alliance stood where the Kreth Dominion once had. But it was not an empire. It was a coalition. 17 species, all equal, all working together. Humans led because they had started the change. But they did not rule. Myray stood on the balcony of the newly built Embassy of Earth. The building was tall and beautiful, made of glass and steel in the human style, but decorated with art from a dozen different worlds. Below her, the streets of the council station were full of beings from everywhere in the galaxy. She was an admiral now, commander of the first contact fleet. Her hair was gray. Her face showed the years of stress and work. But her eyes were the same as always, calm, determined, unafraid. Beside her stood the Keeper of Songs. The old Velith was very old now, held up by machines and medicine. But she had refused to die until she saw this moment. "You changed us," the Keeper said softly. "When you came, we were broken. We had forgotten who we were. You reminded us." Myray thought about the question. She thought about everything that had happened. The battles, the victories, the friends lost along the way. "You changed us too," she said. "Before we met you, we wondered if we were alone. We wondered if the universe was empty. Now we know it is full of life, full of people who need help and who can give help in return. Do you ever regret coming?" The Keeper asked. "The lives lost? The wars fought?" Myray shook her head. "Never, not for one moment." Inside the embassy, the others were preparing for the great ceremony. Taiho was there, now the leading expert on alien languages in human space. He had written books that beings across the galaxy studied. But today, he was just checking that the translation systems worked correctly. Onji was there, head of the Alliance Engineering Course. She had built ships, stations, and machines that combined the best ideas from 20 different species. Her workers loved her because she still got her hands dirty, still crawled into engine rooms to fix problems herself. Jinho was there, commander of the Interstellar Peacekeeping Corps. His soldiers were not human alone anymore. They were Velith, Nalari, and a dozen other species, all trained to protect those who could not protect themselves. They were the shield of the Alliance. And Somi was there, though she almost was not. She had spent the morning on a hospital ship orbiting a moon where a war had just ended. She treated wounded until the last possible moment, then caught a fast shuttle to arrive just in time. She was director of medical aid now. Hospitals with her name on them existed on 30 different worlds. But she still saw patients every day. She still held hands and wiped tears and did the small, important work of caring. They had all changed so much. They had all stayed exactly the same. Yun he could not be there. She was far away, at the edge of known space, listening for signals. Always listening. She had found 17 new species in the last 5 years. 17 new cries for help. 17 new friends. The ceremony began. The great hall of the Galactic Council was full. Representatives from every known species watched as Hyan, now ambassador of the Velith to the Terran Alliance, walked to the speaking platform. She was grown now. No longer the scared child who had watched her family die. She stood tall and proud, wearing robes that combined Velith tradition with human style. "Thank you all for coming," Hyan began. Her voice was clear and strong. "I want to tell you a story. A true story." The hall fell silent. Everyone listened. "When I was young, I thought the universe was a cruel place. The strong crushed the weak. The powerful took whatever they wanted. The helpless had no hope. I believed this because it was all I had ever seen." She paused, looking out at the assembled beings. Then strangers came from the sky. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day. A world with monsters and poison and storms. They survived through strength and violence and an unbreakable will to endure. When they heard our cry for help, they came. One small ship against an empire. They should have died. They should have failed. By every law of the old galaxy, they should have been destroyed. But they won. They won because they had something the Creth did not understand. They had something most of the galaxy did not understand. She smiled, tears in her large, dark eyes. They had compassion. They knew suffering, and so they could not stand to see others suffer. They had power, and so they chose to use it to protect instead of destroy. They were dangerous, yes. More dangerous than anyone imagined. But they were dangerous to evil. Dangerous to cruelty. Dangerous to all who thought might makes right. History did not change when humanity reached the stars. History changed when humanity chose what kind of spacefaring species they would become. They chose to be heroes. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then applause began. Soft at first, then louder. Beings from 100 species clapped hands, tentacles, wings, and things that had no human name. The sound filled the hall like thunder. Myrae watched from the balcony. She did not clap. She just smiled. Far away, on Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, an old woman watched the broadcast on her screen. She was Taiho's grandmother, 93 years old now. Her hands were thin and wrinkled. Her eyes were still sharp. She remembered telling her grandson stories when he was small. Stories about heroes who helped others. Stories about courage and kindness, and doing what was right, even when it was hard. She watched her grandson on the screen, standing with his friends, surrounded by beings from other worlds. She saw what he had become. What they had all become. She cried. But they were good tears. Proud tears. Outside the embassy, in the crowded streets of the station, beings from everywhere talked and laughed and worked together. A Velith child played with a human child. A Nalari merchant sold food to a Creth tourist. Yes, there were Creth here now. The Dominion was gone, but the Creth people remained. They were learning new ways. It was slow, but it was happening. The universe was still full of darkness. There were still wars, still suffering, still evil beings doing evil things. The work was never finished. It would never be finished, but there was also light now. More light than before. And far away, on the edge of known space, Yuna heard a new signal. A new voice crying out for help. She smiled and began to trace its source. The humans were still listening. The humans were still coming, and history was still changing. One cry for help at a time. In the end, that was the lesson the galaxy learned from the Deathworlders. Not how to fight, not how to conquer, but how to care. How to hear a stranger's cry in the darkness and answer, "We are coming. Hold on. Help is on the way." That was humanity's gift to the stars. That was how history changed forever. The end.